Hello and welcome to this video where we have come into Git fundamentals, so Git and GitHub to version control your code. So this is really interesting as you will need this throughout your learning career and throughout your career and throughout all the projects that you're working with. So it's very important and crucial skill to have to work with Git and GitHub, but you could change GitHub to another tool such as GitLab or something else. But Git is really important. And for this video, I will go into Git and GitHub together, the theory part. And in the next one, we'll go into actually setting it up and trying it out. So that will be also very interesting. So let's move on to the presentation now for the theory. So here I am in the keynote. So the fundamentals in Git and GitHub to version control your code. So it's dangerous to work without a backup because this can happen. Okay, you're working and it takes some time to work. You make a feature A, oh cool, good job. And then you make a feature B, you make a feature C and feature D, and together you have a program and you continue to build upon this. And if you don't have a backup, what could happen? Developers really like to drink coffee. So in general, so coffee is built on the computer. What will happen? All work is gone. No, we cannot save it, unfortunately. So unfortunately, all the work is gone and we don't have a backup. So we need to start over again. So this is really not good. We don't want that. And also another problem that can appear is that to track different versions is quite hard. So for example, you're working 2 people and you have one is working with feature A, but it's in version 1, and then another one is working feature A, but it's in version 2. And then we could have more people working with the same feature, and also some features can depend on other features, etc. So it becomes quite messy. And if you're using different versions, it can easily be wrong, and you start to argue about things that is unnecessary. So working on different versions can be problematic. We'll come back in the future lecture how to work with Git and GitHub in team. So then there's a special type of branching strategy which will allow it for simplifying group work with Git and GitHub so that you can develop software in a team. So that will be really interesting, but that comes in a later video. Here, for software development, you can use Git. It can be used for version control. So it's important to commit often to have a history. So what does committing mean? You can see it as checkpoints. So for example, I'm working with something, I have done a commit. So this is a checkpoint of my code, a snapshot of how my code looks like right now. And then I work more and I have another snapshot. So these are commits in your local repository, so repo. So this is locally, so it still don't have a backup to the cloud. So it means that if you're still spilling coffee on your computer, sayonara. So sorry about that, but that is where GitHub comes into play. So we have Git together with GitHub. So remember, these things are 2 different. Git you use for locally version control. GitHub you use it to store your commit histories and your code, right? So first, what you do is you create a repository in GitHub. So there's a lot of other workflows that you can do, but this is a really neat one that I really like. So you create a repo in GitHub, and then you clone it down. So the repo, you could create, for example, Python Coq-Shenyang and data processing Coq-Shenyang. So you can create several repos in your GitHub account. And then you clone it to the local computer. So cloning is basically just a copy of it. So now we have same locally as we have remote. So this is in your local computer. And then when you're working and finished, you're committed your work, and then you can push your work to GitHub. And then you will have this backup. And you will also have, since you have committed several times, you will have a commit history, which means that you can go back in time. So using Git, you can actually time travel, so you can see what has happened. So this is the version control. And remember that these steps here are done only once or twice if you have more computers, but that you're working with the same code base, but you're creating a repo once and then you're cloning it once to your local machine. And then this pushing, you do this often. So when you're doing changes, you're committing the changes and then you're pushing the changes. That is it. So remember these concepts of cloning and committing and pushing. And if you have two computers, what will happen? Make sure to clone to both computers. So cloning you do once for each computer. And then you do git pull before you're working. And then you do git push after you're done working. And you do git pull before you're working on another computer. And you do git push after you're working with that computer. And in this case, then everything will stay in sync. So now we're working with just one main branch, but later on when you're working in team, you will work with several branches to make sure to be able to work smoothly in a team. Okay. So this was a short lecture on Git and GitHub, so some theory part, and in the next lecture we'll go into actually setting it up and actually testing it out. So that will be really interesting. So move on to the next lecture and see you there.